Hello. Today we're going to find the mean, variance, and standard deviation of a data set using our TI 83, 83 plus, or 84 plus graphing calculator. We have a set of numbers. We need to first enter it into the calculator. The place that we store our numbers is under the button you want to use is the one called Stat and List on your graphing calculator. So first I press the Stat button. You'll be able to see the key presses on the right. I'm going to scroll to Edit. So I use my arrow keys to scroll up and down. Once I'm at Edit, I hit Enter. This will bring up a list. My calculator happens to already have some things in its list. We want to clear those out before we enter a new list. So I will arrow up until L1 is highlighted. Now I'm going to hit the Clear button, and then I'm going to hit Enter. My list should disappear. Now I need to enter the numbers that I want to find the statistics for in my data set. So each time I enter the numbers, I'm going to hit Enter, and then it'll just go down the list. So 23, Enter, 34, Enter, 27, Enter, 40, 28, 31, 29, 33, 37, 38, 19, 41. Once you get your list, scroll through it by hitting the arrow keys and double check it against the list to make sure you have typed everything in correctly. If you make an error, you can change it now. I think mine looks okay. You'll see at the bottom of your screen that L1 of 3 that we see at the bottom of the screen tells me that the third entry in L1 is the 27. So if you scroll all the way down to the last number, which in our case is 41, you can actually scroll upward and it'll wrap you around the bottom of the list. If you place your cursor on the last number, it says L1 at 12, that means I have 12 numbers. So if you have a large list, this is an easy way to tell how many you have. Now we want to quit from here. So I'm going to do second, quit. That takes me back to my home screen. Now, if you will look above your Stat button, it has the word List. Mine's in blue. I'm going to reach it with the blue second function. Yours may be a different color, but you're still going to use the second function in the upper left corner to reach all the functions that are listed above the keys. So I do second, List. Now I'm going to scroll over to Ops, stands for operations, and then over to math. Okay, so I can find several things here. If you scroll through the list, you'll see all kinds of interesting things. Let's go to standard deviation. I'm going to hit Enter. This is assuming it is a sample standard deviation. Remember, the formula is slightly different if you have a population from when you have a sample. In the sample, you use n-1 for your denominator on the variance and the standard deviation. If you have a population, you use n. So I'm assuming it's a sample as I do this calculation. So let's enter standard deviation. Now I want to put L1. If you will look carefully on your calculator, above the numerical keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you see L1, L2, L3, and so on. Mine are in blue, so I'm going to reach them using my blue second function key. Again, yours may be a different color. So I'm going to do second, L1. And L1 shows up on my calculator screen. I'm going to close the parentheses and hit Enter. Okay, this gives me a sample standard deviation of about 6.81. So let's write that down. So rounding to 4 decimal places, that'll give me about 6.8135. Let me put my correct notation here. We'll use a lowercase s for this. Okay, let's do that again. Go to the list function on our calculator. And if I go to math again, let's scroll down till we get to the variance. Whoops, went too far. Okay, if you'll scroll the up arrow instead, if you're having trouble, you can always scroll upward through your list and it'll wrap you around the bottom. So I'm going to choose variance. Once again, I'm going to put L1, close my parentheses, 46.42. Notice, remember your standard deviation is the square root of your variance. So if I take the square root of this, or alternatively raise it to the 0.5 power, I should get my same 6.8135 for my standard deviation. Let's go to the square root key, which is in blue above the x squared button, so I reach it with my second function, and I'm going to put my answer, use A and S, the blue right above the negative sign that's in the parentheses. That gives us our previous answer, so we do square root of answer. This should give me my sample standard deviation, and will match what I did before, 6.8135. Okay, now what if we want some other information? Or what if this group of numbers happens to be a population instead of a sample? I will show you something else that you can do that's very, very helpful. Okay, I'm going to clear out my computer. And now let's go to stat. So instead of using list, I'm going to use stat. I'm going to scroll over to calc. Notice here it says 1 var stats. That's for one variable statistics. I'm going to hit enter. Here, it actually does not have a parentheses, but I can just put in the L1. And actually, if you don't put the L1, it will default to L1, which is fine. But that means if you put it in L3, you're going to need to put in the list number here for sure. I'm going to go ahead and put in my L1, and I'm going to hit enter. This gives me a whole bunch of useful information. Notice it gives me the x bar, which is the mean. It gives me the sum of the x's, the sum of the x squareds. The SX means the sample standard deviation. That's what we obtained before. Right below it is the sigma x, which, as you know, is the population standard deviation. So if this were a population and not a sample, we would use that 6.52346 number. If we scroll down, it gives us n is equal to 12. It gives us the minimum, which is 19. Q1 means the first quartile, meaning 1/4 of the numbers are below it. The median is 32. The third quartile, basically, your first quartile is the median of the bottom half. Your third quartile is the median of the top half. And the max is 41. That's our largest data point. So let's go back to our paper and write down our mean and our population standard deviation. So our mean, remember your mean will be the same whether you are talking about a population or a sample. We're going to use x bar if it's a sample. And so that was about 31.67. Okay, we would use the symbol mu, if it is a population. Okay, our population standard deviation Okay, remember the symbol for that will be sigma. And that was approximately 6.5235 using the sigma x on our calculator. And if you wanted to type that in and square it, you would get the population variance. Okay, I hope that helped you to understand how to do these calculations on a calculator. You should know how to do them by hand, but for large data sets, or even to check your answers, or just for being practical, the calculator is a very, very helpful.